Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee this September the 17th, 2025. May I please get a roll call?
Mr. Grumney?
Here.
Mr. Ghost?
Here.
Mr. Ayer?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mrs. Cooper?
Here.
Mr. Capel is absent and the mayor will be in later.
Correct. Thank you, Amber. We do have minutes from our meeting on August the 20th.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. Ghost. Do we have any discussion? Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Ghost?
Yes.
Mr. Ayer?
Yes.
Mr. Grumney?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
5 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you, Amber. So that moves us right into new and unfinished business, and we're going to jump off with something near and dear, cybersecurity policy.
Thank you. Good
Yeah.
evening. Yes, first on the agenda tonight is the cybersecurity, and I wanted to show you all and have you take a look at the Auditor of State Bulletin. This is Bulletin 2025-007, and it is it's come as a result of House Bill 96, which was recently passed, and it basically requires that all entities of the state of Ohio and cities, as we are a city, we are obligated to do this. We have to enact a cybersecurity policy, and this policy has to be enacted and enforced as of January 1st, 2026. So we have a hard deadline when we have to have that enforced. This bulletin lists various items that have to be included in that policy. It defines what a cybersecurity incident is or what a ransomware incident is. When you are allowed to make payment on ransomware is defined in there as well. And there's also just some more guidance on the back page. What this doesn't provide is a draft policy or an example that we can take and modify. So I'll be looking for examples from other cities and through the OML through the coming months and put that policy together and bring it to Finance Committee and eventually Council to get that approved and in place prior to the deadline. So this was just to bring it to your attention that this is what I'll be working on and it'll be coming down the pipe.
Real quick on ransomware, I actually just read something that you should never, ever pay. Now, what I pay for ransomware because chances that they're actually going to release what you're paying for, or they're just going to then again say, well, you paid X, now you'll probably pay Y for it.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know it's probably a personal decision per entity, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's defined in there on the third page, page 3 at the bottom. It
Yeah.
talks about when it's allowed.
Yeah.
But I think it has to be voted on by the legislative authority. So the council does have some jurisdiction there.
Right.
Well, has jurisdiction there.
And I guess it highlights the importance of backup, because if you got backup data, then keep what you have. We're gonna. But yeah, okay, sorry, thank you.
No, that's fine. And I also wanted to note that we do have money in the budget for 2026 for cybersecurity. So I don't think that won't be necessary for the policy, but we may be required to get certain products or something in place, which may require financial output. So just to let you know, we do have money budgeted in the budget for that.
Any questions on cybersecurity policy or a requirement by January 26th?
Is this an ongoing?
I think once you create the policy and then you just have to adhere to that policy. So, yeah. Okay, I think that takes us to the appeal for the income tax review. I think Rita, correct, by resident.
A couple weeks ago, I received a letter delivered to the office from an individual, Mr. Moore. He resides on Big Blue Stem Way in Sunbury. You have the letter and the response from Rita to the resident in your packet. The matters like this are brought to the Income Tax Board of Review. The Finance Committee as review over finances, has authority to say yay or nay on whether or not we want to satisfy this appeal or not. In this instance, the individual had his taxes being taken out of his paycheck by his employer. He didn't actually owe them because he was not in Sunbury. He did get a refund on the other years that were affected. However, Rita's statute of limitations was already passed for one of the years, and that's the year that he's trying to collect. Because he didn't truly owe the money, he's asking for it back. So the decision lies with the council on whether or not we would like to provide that refund to him. So I suppose according to our ordinance, we do have, let's see, we do have 60 days after the receipt, I believe, or wait, we have a certain amount of time. I have to look at the ordinance. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but I have to look at the ordinance to see how much time the Board of Tax Review has to get back to the resident. But in my opinion, since this tax was never truly owed by the resident, I feel that it's obviously his money.
And that's a council decision, not just a recommendation from the finance committee maybe or whatever. Okay. And then that refundable money, does that come from, and sorry, this is an ignorant question, but does it come from Rita or does it come from the city?
It would go from Rita. So I, as the finance director, have the authority to tell Rita
Okay.
yes or no on this appeal,
Okay.
and they'll take care of
Gotcha.
refunding the money to the resident.
Excellent.
We will pay back Rita what portion of that money we ended up getting.
Well, we're not going to pay any money to Rita. They're just going to deduct it from whatever they were.
It evens out, is my point.
Yes.
Okay, so can we do it just with a motion and a second in the meeting tonight?
I suppose you could.
That might be a Mr. Bream question, but,
Mr. Green won't be with us tonight,
oh,
so, but Vic Whitney will be, so
Oh, okay.
I'll ask Mr. Whitney
Yeah.
before the meeting, just to give him a heads up then.
yeah.
That's all this is. I'm happy to answer any questions.
The amount he's requesting was the 1366, right? 1,366. Am I reading that correctly?
1,366. Yes.
And he didn't live here and he didn't work here.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, this is pretty easy.
Just a stat. He just ran a statute, right? He just,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you,
it expired, the statute expired. That's all.
yes, they have a 3-year statute of limitations.
Doesn't look like he missed it by much, though, does it?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've got our direction on that one. So we'll jump right in, Ms. Devon, to the 26 budget draft general fund.
All right, I'm gonna, I think, lead this conversation
Okay.
and Dana will jump in as if I get it wrong or to add some additional insights. So generally begin by saying this is the first introduction to the FY26 budget that you're hearing. In terms of the schedule, the thought was we would spend this evening talking about the general revenue fund, essentially the operations of the city. We'll also touch briefly on the sewer fund because that obviously does affect operations as well. We'll talk about the capital budget in more detail in these special revenue accounts at the next meeting as well. So we'll be at finance this month and next month talking about what is being proposed. So there's an opportunity to make adjustments at any time. And then we'll begin the readings with council in November. So again, there's still time. This is not the last time you'll hear this. And like I said, there's plenty of opportunity for you to weigh in with some comments. So like I said, we're going to primarily focus on the general fund this evening. So I draw your attention to packet page 11 to begin. So this is an overview of the city's accounts. I think you've seen this before from Ms. Steffen. I've highlighted on the general fund a couple of numbers. One is the anticipated revenues for collection in 2026 and the anticipated appropriations. So we anticipate general fund revenues to be at just a little over $8.5 million and the appropriations to be just a little bit short of $8.5 million. Now, I'll explain what additional items need to be added to this based upon the capital requests a little bit later. But I think sort of the big takeaway I want you to take away from this is that I feel like the budget as being proposed is in balance with, again, expected revenues. There is also on the far right-hand side, the negative number on the capital funds project, $25 million. Again, don't pay a lot of attention to that quite yet, because we'll talk more about that at the next meeting. And keep in mind, we've got that, we've got a lot of capital projects underway. And so we want to make sure that we're showing those appropriately. So the next page, if you move to packet page 12, this shows you the estimated revenues that make up the general fund. So the column on the far left-hand side is the one that I would draw your attention to this evening. So if you look to almost to the very bottom, the receipts equal just a little over $8.5 million. Like I said, these are the sources that make up the expected revenues. I've highlighted the real property tax line item there, showing you that this is a conversation we've been having about inside millage. We said that even if we couldn't get the millage reduced this year, that we would reduce our dependence on the revenue going forward. So what you see here is a number that represents 2/3 of what is anticipated to be collected with real property tax inside millage. So as you can see, again, living on something short of 100% of those funds. Staff's recommendation, I think at this point, is that we take the balance of those and we put those in a reserve account and hold those for some other purpose until we can resolve the inside millage reduction process with the county budget office, the budget commission, sorry. The other thing I would call out here is municipal income tax collections. You can see the revenue estimate of $6.2 million. We think that is a conservative estimate at the moment. We'll talk a little bit more about where we stand with our total collections later in the meeting, but we are on pace to collect somewhere around $6.4 million this year. So this number we do think is low/conservative, but that's okay. And the only other line item I'd like to call out, and I should have highlighted it a little bit better, fines, licenses, and permits. It looks shaded in your packet. $250,000. I call this out because this revenue line assumes a new revenue source for the city in 2026. About $50,000 has been added to what has been our traditional revenue estimate that we believe could be collected from permit fees that are currently not being collected by the city, but are being collected by lots of other jurisdictions around the area, mostly related to zoning and building process. So this summer, one of the planning, and that's part of the reason why Alex is here this evening, one of the projects that the planning interns worked on over the summer was to look at the number of permits that the city has been processing and how many of those have a fee attached to those and how many of them don't. Long story short, over the last 2.5 years, the city has processed almost 1,100 permit requests, and of those, about 60% of them have no fee attached to them whatsoever. And included in that category of permits that has no fee attached to it are fences, patios, and the like. Those are probably, I think, the two primary ones. So what we are proposing for next year is that we would bring to council an ordinance that would implement a fee structure for those missing permit, those permits that need to be issued. Once we have that in place, we'll begin to collect the revenue and then hire a permit specialist who will be funded again with the monies associated with that. So did want to call that out, and we'll talk about that as we get to the planning and zoning department. All right, so that's the revenues. If anybody has any questions, we can stop there. I can keep going through the expenses. And I don't know.
Any questions on revenues?
I think you are.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready for expenses.
All right, so beginning on packet page 13, you see the city appropriations, proposed appropriations by category. And on the far right-hand side, you see a column that represents the appropriations for 2025. So if you do a crosswalk, you can see the percent change from category to category. But I'm going to cover this just at a really high level. So, so the first large sort of fund or department that you see there is the police department. And if you look at the fiscal year 2025 appropriations for payroll, it's just a little short of $2.9 million. And if you looked at 2026 at 2.9, you'd wonder, what's happening, and that's not at all possible. But what's happening here is you will see that we've pulled out fees associated with the mayor's court, fees, I should say, sorry, salaries and benefits associated with the mayor's court, and they're shown in the mayor's court account line. So this is not that we are reducing the overall payroll for the police department. And in fact, what this includes is one new full-time patrol officer for the department. So that would bring it from 9 to 10. And then it also includes, so the mayor's court will include a part-time administrative support position to support the administrative team over there.
Yeah, just so I'm correct, it's showing a slight increase over 2025, correct?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's pretty much on par for last year, but because of reductions you stated.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say reductions. I mean, we just redefined kind of
Redefined, okay.
where the salary expenses are, or
Okay.
which category those are included in.
Right,
So like I said, this is fully staffing our police department. It's adding that additional patrol officer. And like I said, it's and it's got the school resource officer, the detectives, all of that.
Right.
Let me just, if I could, touch on the point of the police department staffing. This issue came up during the strategic retreat earlier this year. And one of the things that council had asked us to do was begin to maybe analyze our police department compared with some neighboring jurisdictions to see how we stand. So with the help of one of the planning interns this year, we compared the city of Sunbury against Powell, Delaware, Plain City, Johnstown, and New Albany. And we looked at our staffing levels based on population, based on area, size of the geographic community. And we knew another important characteristic was that there are a lot of schools, there are a lot of students that live in the city of Sunbury, and how do we kind of compare there? On a high level, really what it says to us is we lag the city of Powell in terms of the number of officers per square mile of the city. We are about 1.3 officers. We have 1.3 officers fewer than they do per square mile. And when it comes to the number of students, we've got about half an officer for every 100 students in our jurisdiction. They have 3.5 officers. So they don't have a lot of schools. Powell just doesn't have a lot of students sitting in their political jurisdiction. But we were pretty comparable when it came to the population. You know, the number of officers per 1,000, we're at about 1.8, they're at about 1.5. So another community when it comes to population that we lag behind was Plain City. Again, we're at about 1.8 officers per 1,000. They're at just a little short of 2.4. So, and then the final thing I would call out with respect to New Albany, also we lag, in terms of officer size or department size compared to the population. Again, we've got 1.8 per 1,000 residents. They're at about 2.7 per 1,000 residents. We're very comparable with Johnstown and New Albany when it comes to the number of students, because those communities have their students in that community as well. So it's a little bit up and down, but the point is there are some areas in which we do lag on the staffing level. One thing that I think we would focus on next year is trying to understand just how much of the call for service, how much of our officer time is spent in a call for service. We weren't able to really get that data this year, but we'll make a commitment to do that next year for sure. So, and I'm happy to share the spreadsheet with you if you want to see it. But all right. Other things that it does, it retains the policy analyst position as well, but that has been a vacant position for a couple of years. We just carried it on the books. It is still in the police department's budget. Not much of a change on really any of the other operational issues for them. Under the category of planning and zoning department. So we were roughly $340,000 in appropriation in the current year. There's about $430,000 proposed for 2026. This is that new position that I referenced earlier. So this is the permit and zoning inspector person on the staff, but again, funded with the increased fees. It also includes funding to complete the zoning code update, which starts this year, finishes next year. We've also included funding to update the city's comprehensive plan in next year's budget as well. So the plan was last updated in 2016. So we're 10 years out. That's a good time for us to be thinking about updating our comprehensive plan. And then it includes the open gov fees. So the, something that has, I think, transformed the way we do our business there. Next category, mayor and administration. So the big change in this category is under contractual services. So the amount that you see in the appropriation for 2026 is just a little over 2 million. In 2025, it's just a little short of $1 million. So you may remember that we come back to the council a lot. And when we come back to council for budget revisions, it tends to be this because of this. These are engineering fees and our legal fees. Now, there are other things in there as well, but those are the big ones. So what we're trying to do, I think, is get this more right-sized when we come to council in the first case. But it's also important to note that it includes, we'll continue to include design services for some major projects that are underway. The Little Walnut Creek Extension, we've talked a lot about, East Side Utilities, and certainly the State Route 37 widening project. A lot of the design costs will occur in next year. Having said that, there are also some revenues associated with that as well. We've got grant money to help with the State Route 37 widening project. We will get reimbursed on the Little Walnut Creek Interceptor eventually. These are just upfront costs being spent now that we hopefully will recapture at some later point in time. And then on the legal fee side, now that we are beginning to collect revenues through the NCA, at least out on the Parkway side, some of those legal fees that we've been covering through our general fund budget can now be funded directly with NCA money. So it also includes $25,000 in contract services for human resources support. We've talked about this, I think, in for a couple of years now. And so it's not talking about a person, it's really talking about contract services when we've got a human resource related project. So, all right. Legislative activities. The big thing I would call out here is it does include some additional funding in 2026 for detailed strategic planning and goal setting. So last year, or this year, we did the visioning and the not goals. Shoot. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But anyway, but what we didn't do is we haven't done any sort of detailed strategic planning. I think it is now time for us to do that. And we were trying to hold that off a little bit until this round of elections because we were going to have 4 council members up. So now we're, when we get into the 2026 year, we'll be ready to do that. We'll have the funds in the budget to help us do that. And we also think there will be a minor adjustment then to the council's salaries as well to keep pace with the credit requirements for PERS. So I know it's been a year and a half since we've done anything, so you're probably wondering where we've been on that. So those are the adjustments in the legislative activities. In the mayor's court, we've talked about that. So that's your bailiff, the probation officer, the administrative position, and then it's a new part-time assistant administrative position as well. In the finance department, the total budget actually goes down, but the reason for that is we had appropriation for a revenue study that we never did. And we've reassigned those funds for other uses, like the detailed strategic planning. Land and buildings. The only thing I want to call out in this line item is it used to have some money set aside for engineering costs. We've consolidated those all into that $2 million contract services number that I mentioned a little bit earlier. And finally, street maintenance and repairs. It basically retains our current staffing levels. It does add an additional part-time seasonal person during the winter months. Okay. So now we're to packet page 15. So what's missing from the general fund budget at this point? You'll notice at the very top there, it talks about a transfer total appropriate, transfers in and out. It's under the other financing uses. They're just blanks at the moment. And if you looked over to the right-hand side, you'd see we had somewhere around $1.6 million. So this is where we need to kind of fine-tune the capital expenses, the capital projects, basically the construction, the contingency costs, those hard costs that we expect to incur in fiscal year 2026, and you'll start to see those in the transfer. So we'll bring that back for the next meeting. The other thing I want to call out is that think it's time for us to build out the city's capacity a little bit more as it relates to engineering inspection services. So in that contract services line item, the $2 million that I referenced before, it's included funding for inspection services related to some capital projects, like the road project, for example. But we have lots of, inspection costs associated with projects that we are currently paying out to engineering firms to do that work. We think that we can repurpose some of that, not all of it. We'll need to use an outside inspector for specialized inspection services. But the goal here, the plan here is to establish our own engineering inspector, use those existing inspection fees that we currently send to a contractor, and basically do that in-house. And you'll see that all on the wage and salary structure, which we'll also bring to the next meeting. I should mention that as well. And then the final thing that I don't have a number in here yet for is the Joint Recreation District. We did appropriate $50,000 for that this year, up to actually $70,000 in total. I don't know that all 70 gets spent this year. But once we figure out where the JRD is, I'll be back in touch with you and talk a little bit more about what the request is for our group. So that's the general fund. Like I said, that's what's in there. That's what's missing. That's what you should expect to see at the next meeting. But again, the capital budgeting process will help us kind of fill these gaps a little bit more. The final point I will make then is on the sewer plant. So from an operational perspective, we do anticipate doing some adjustment with the personnel there. So right now we have 2 collections positions. Both of them have to have a Class 1 license. Dale would like to change that to one of them to a plant attendant, because there are times that he brings somebody in who doesn't have a license, and we need to have a position category for them. So there's no net change there. It's just taking 2 collection off positions and redefining those. There is a proposal, though, for a new position for a Class 2 licensed operator to be an assistant plant operator, I should say. We don't have anyone in mind for this at this moment. It is a requirement of the Ohio EPA to at least have the position. We do have employees who are at the Class 1 level who are working to get to their Class 2. So it's basically just to have a position there if somebody does get to the Class 2 level during the fiscal year. So, but those will all play themselves out on the sewer fund, not the general revenue fund. So, all right. So I know that's a lot, but wanted to at least get that out on. Is there anything else you want to highlight or?
Daryl did a great job of going through the general fund. I would also point out, it's not in here yet, but I do have a fund to be created for the reserves. So the money that we get from the county that we're reserving away for the property tax will go into that special fund. So we'll have that separated, and also have a fund to segregate out wages for employees that are retiring, for example, and they're going to get a payout of extra money, or there's a 27th payroll. That fund will come into play in 2026 as well.
Yeah, so I think we established that earlier this year by appropriation. So now we're going to start to fund it. Yeah. Okay, so again, no action for the Finance Committee this evening, but really just want to give you a sense of where we're going with the operating fund for next year and answer any questions you've got.
Questions?
A couple things. I think we should take another look at our sewer tap fees, sewer use fees early in the year. I mean, if not later this year. I know we just updated rates, went through the sewer study. I think now that we know what we're paying for the sewer plant, we know a pretty good idea of Little Walnut Creek Interceptor 2, generally Little Walnut Creek Interceptor 3. Yeah, as these large scale capital projects start to come into focus, I think we really need to start honing in the utility rates associated with paying down those ultimate debts. That's one thing. So when I look at on the back of page 12, total enterprise fund, sanitary sewer fund revenue 3.166. First of all, I understand it's a utility, but in my mind, like that's a number that when we're planning that far out and that large of dollar amount, I mean, in the $30 million range, Yeah, I think that's one number that year over year, we should really try to incrementally increase. I know last year we were very modest with our increase, but moving forward, when we're talking millions of dollars, like that's the first place I would target. The other thing I would mention is Mayor's Court. Yeah, if you look at page 14, it's a $280,000 increase in Mayor's Court. That is a budgetary exercise. That expense has always existed. I think there's probably room for slicing and dicing. Is it $280,000 or is it $200,000? You know, that includes obviously the three people that were mentioned, you know, Kathy, Brooks, Casey, but it also includes a new person plus their benefits as well, right?
Yes.
You know, when it comes down to it, you know, whether it's in the police budget or the Mayor's Court budget, it has definitely not been appropriately, you know, allocated to Mayor's Court. So I think this is a really good step in the right direction. I think we may want to look at like the finance team, giving some recommendations on, you know, is the $280,000 too much? Because then you, in your mind, you think, okay, Kathy Hickson is totally allocated to Mayor's Court. I don't know if that's totally true. Like she's answering the door at the police department. Same thing with Casey. Those are the conversations I think we should be having just over the next few weeks, you know, whether it's 280, but it doesn't matter at the bottom line, right? Like, I guess at the end of the day, it's an exercise of just where do the costs lie and where do the services, where are they rendered?
Yeah, no, and that absolutely fair on both of the points. And Dana and I have been talking a little bit about prorating a little bit more of this. At the moment, it just shows it 100% over there. So yeah, we'll refine that before we come back at the next meeting. And as for the utility rate study, great point. In fact, I know we had talked about when we did the last one that we weren't going to wait another 5 years to do it. We would try to address that more immediately. So yeah, I think Dana would feel a lot better if we did that study sooner rather than later too. So we will get that in there.
Yes, I think it's just a really good practice. I think over the past couple of years, you know, we've had these large, you know, reappropriations, re-encumbrances of the merit administrative expense, and you nailed it. I mean, it's legal and engineering. Those are the two large buckets. Yeah, it's a $1.1 million increase versus what we had last year, but honestly, it's or this year, but it's accurate. I feel confident in the numbers, given the projects that we have laid out. Totally support looking for additional fee revenue, especially ones that are like baseline that other communities are doing. Definitely support, you know, having more of a vested interest in the inspection services in-house. I think this is going to be really the first step in building out like a team, you know, when we think about having an accountable party that is in the office that you can go to, and they may not be able to do everything, but it's great to be able to build a bench of talent and have that accountability in-house. And it's a huge shift in the right direction. So, I mean, overwhelmingly, I'm in support of the budget. Obviously, there's still tweaks we need to do, but that's my take. Good work. Good first pass.
Yeah, thank you. Very good work. A quick question. Where's the REIT administration fee? Where does that fall under? Is that under finance?
It's under mayor and admin.
Okay.
And yeah, wages and admin.
About
So that
3%
would
of the
be-
total.
It is exactly 3% of what we budgeted for the revenues, because that's what Rita charges.
I think that's a very conservative estimate on the income tax, by the way. I mean, basically, we're saying that we're going to come in flat when you're seeing every year it's 17% or 15% up.
That's included in that $2 million number.
Gotcha. Because I know I brought up at one point about what's the tipping point?
Yeah, I thank you for that. Yeah, that's worth talking about again a little bit here. So yeah, when you look at that number on its face, it does feel like it's a pretty significant number. But remember, there is actually a refund or a credit that came back to us at the end. And at the end of the day, I think it ended up costing us about $75,000, somewhere in that range,
For the
to
service.
basically have the RETA services in the prior year. I think that's pretty good investment.
Yeah.
You know, for the effort that's put in, for the you know, the collections that we get, the service that we get. I mean, you interact with them more than I do, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I'll echo what Daryl said. Rita is a great partner. They do a fine job. I go to their governance meetings on occasion, and it's a well-run organization. They're always looking for feedback from the member cities and communities. So they are a very good partner, always listening to us and improving their processes as well. So
Okay,
happy with them.
thank you. Any other comments or questions on the general fund?
I just want to call out, again, like looking at like page one. Just, I mean, I said this to Daryl and Dana the other day. I mean, our strategy is working. I mean, revenues are up at a greater level than our population, greater than our permit issuance, whatever metric you want to compare it against. The revenue is increasing at a faster rate than our growth, and that is, I mean, if anybody who runs a business, like, that's very good. So it's allowed us to have some flexibility here. I think we're just going to be more accurate next year on our budget. I feel really good. Honestly, I think the income tax revenue line is very conservative, probably more conservative than it even has been in the past years, but it's not that thing.
I mean, that's a good point, because I didn't even put in new builds, new people coming into the city. That's not even included into the calculus. So it is very, very conservative.
I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
Rather have that. Okay. All right, I think that takes us on to the staples of the year-to-date comparison reports and bank to book reconciliations.
Yeah, so starting on page 21 of your packet, did you notice the different formatting?
Yes, it was
I
wonderful.
tried to make it a little bit easier to view and to read.
Yes.
So it wouldn't, yeah, so hopefully you find this a little easier to look at. Starting on page 21 is the revenues. So this is through August. So through 8 months of 12, or 66.6% through the year. And just to call your attention to a few things, income tax, of course, is 71% collected. So we're looking good on that front. Liquor and beer tax, to point that out, we've only budgeted 5,000. We've got 8,500, 8,600. So that it's not a large dollar, but it is something that has been growing that we've been receiving. So it's good to note. Interest income. This is just the general fund portion, 516,000. So we're already exceeding our budget there.
Looks like we're doing all right in miscellaneous reimbursements.
Miscellaneous is, yeah, that's what, 503%. The majority of that one was the reimbursement of the Woodland Lake development legal fees. We've gotten those back. So we're paying ourselves back.
That's just the beginning. Thank you.
The rest of these funds on page 22, 23, there's nothing much to point out. And I know we've talked these things to death every meeting, every month throughout the year. So I won't belabor the points here, but everything is looking good. We are receiving, we're paying for the wastewater treatment plant. The pay apps are going through, we're getting reimbursed from the state. So all that is working well. So revenues are good. I'll move on to expenses unless there are questions on revenues. Page 25, we start the expenses, and same old stories here. Cruiser repair is up because we just can't predict how much it's going to cost to fix the cruisers. And unfortunately, it seems like there's issues at every turn. So that continues to be a struggle. In the contractual services for admin down at towards the bottom of page 25, I have a green star there. That's just to indicate that it's a reimbursable. So the I'm sorry, not highlighted, but the bolded item there for the East Side Utilities, 298,600. That's the piece that's associated with that green star. So you can kind of see that's the money we're going to get back. Also, I've listed, everything we've paid for legal, for engineering, and all those other services. There's really not much else to point out that I haven't already discussed in previous meetings. So. So yeah, I won't bore you by going line by line, pointing these out, so I'll just ask if there's any questions. There's really nothing much to bring to your attention that is new or stunning. So,
New standing now, okay.
yes.
Thank you, Ms. Devon. Any specific or general for that matter, questions on the comparison reports? Okay.
Looking at the check report for the month, I'll just see if there's anything very high that I would point out. DT consultants or Verdantis, they're getting paid. Of course, that's a lot. There's a $48,000 payment to Zoresco. This is on page 35. $48,960. This is to outfit our new F-550 for the service team for the plow, I believe, plow and spreader. So that's a capital item there. And also 40,000, a little bit further down on that same page, $40,331 to Neo Water Treatment. That is a chemical company, and this is a purchase that Dale explained to me. It's a little bit higher, but it'll be more efficient to treat what he needs treated at the sewer plant. So it is a large expense, but it's something that he pays only a few times throughout the year or twice throughout the year. So that's all.
Okay.
If there's anything else major. And then on the bank to book reconciliations, back to the front page, we talked a little bit about the income tax. Every category is increasing. And we're at 17% over where we were at this point in 2024. So that is a significant jump. And then on page 2, just briefly go through the bank to book. We've got $22,888,625.91 in total in our bank accounts. Outstanding checks are $71,000. We have $101,000 variance, and this is all due to, not all, but mostly 95% due to a late payroll that we had in August. So there's outstanding checks and it's employee withholding checks basically, and also OPERS and OP&F. Those monies have been collected and retained, but haven't been remitted to the state yet, at least as of the end of August. They have been now, but as of the end of August, they weren't, and that's what's causing that timing difference.
Okay. Any questions? I'd say the city's doing pretty well.
I'd say so too, for sure.
Yeah, pretty strong. And you don't hear that with everything going on, so feel good that Sunbury's in such a good spot, so. Thank you for all the information. Mr. Anderson, thank you for the report out on the budget. Any comments or questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, thank you again, and looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mayor. Second by Ms. Dreyer. Our discussion, roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Ms. Strayer,
Yes.
Mr. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.